Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of All Sorts of Esports. This will be a longer, unedited version of just my thoughts on the coming season of North American LCS, European LCS, and the LCK, which is Korea. I'm going to overview today. We're going to do Cloud9, Echo Fox, Golden Guardians, Fnatic, and SKT. So most of LCK is chosen, most of their free agents are picked up, but Europe is still in a lot of fog. They don't exactly know who they're going with, or we just don't know as the community. So I mostly have North America to talk about through speculation, and lots of them have already released what they're doing with next season. So it's pretty exciting to talk about them right now, and I'm looking forward to it. So first up, we got Cloud9. So even though they had a really great season last year, or both 2 seasons last year, they still made 2 key changes. So they had the jungle change and the top lane. So they went from the Ray and Impact duo top lane to Licorice as the starter and Ray as the substitute. So you can assume that Ray will play on their academy team and Licorice will start for them this coming season. And secondly, which was very unknown, not very many people knew about, is Svenskeren coming back to Cloud9 and staying in North America, which is really great. Most people thought he was going to go back to Europe since he kind of got kicked off Team Solo Mid, but I'm happy to see him stay, and it's very exciting. And then lastly, we have Jensen, Smoothie, and Sneaky, of course, and AD Carry staying on Cloud9, and then Reaper as their coach, just like last year. I'm very excited for this roster once again, and I hope Svenskeren can get to his 2016 self. 2017, especially in Summer Split, he struggled a little bit, and I hope that he doesn't just become a meme, because it's pretty sad to watch him, just if you think about the latest memories that you have, especially at Worlds this past year. So I'm looking forward to Cloud9 playing. Next, we got Echo Fox. So Echo Fox pretty much went over a whole renovation of their last team. So we got Huni in the top lane, Dardoch in the jungle, Phoenix in mid. So you'll notice that Froggen is actually gone. And this was very unexpected for me, as I think of most as the big community, the big ratio of the community. Froggen seemed to be really good friends with Rick Fox, the owner, and Froggen is just an all-star. He's always been great. So it's really weird to see him either get kicked or him drop himself out of the North American LCS. Because right now, NALCS is full with their starting mid laners, it looks like. So maybe he'll be going back to Europe or streaming. No one really knows yet. And then AD carry, we have Altec. And then support, we have Adrian. So if you think about Huni, Dardoch, Phoenix, and Adrian, those are 4 players that have always had a huge amount of controversy and made a lot of conversation with how they've worked in their team and their teammates talking about them once they got off the team. So this is kind of, if you can untie the knot that this team has already tied, then I think it could be really great, but we'll just see. I think this is one of the biggest toss-up teams of this coming season. And then finally we have the coach, which is Anero. So I didn't know too much about him, so I researched him a little bit. He was the coach for Tainted Minds. I don't know if any of you guys remember that team back in 2016, and then the coach of Echo Fox, starting this past May. So it's pretty interesting, and he wasn't able to do too much with that roster, and they did have a struggling roster, so we should be excited for what they can do this coming season. It should be very interesting, to say the least. And also a big part of Echo Fox that I think a lot of people can miss is the substitutes right now. So right now they have Grigne in the jungle, and then Mash and Gate in the bot lane, which all these players have played in the LCS before, so they could be doing some swapping. Even with the best of ones this coming season, it should still be very interesting. And then next we got the Golden Guardians. So I think the Golden Guardians is the most underrated team coming into this split. No one's talking about him, and I think the biggest thing is Loco Doko. He is a multi-time champion with TSM. He's a retired Korean AD carry, and he has a notable spot in the Breaking Point documentary, which he actually did a very good job. If you watch that whole documentary, you will be very enthused to see that he handled the situation as best he could, even though Dardoch wasn't the most amazing person and that team environment wasn't the greatest. So he has led to many championships with TSM, even with their semi-good roster with Santorin, Amazing, and Lustboy in that era. They didn't have the greatest roster, but they still did really great. So I'm very excited to see what he can do with top lane Lorlo, and then we got Contracts in the jungle. And this is kind of an iffy topic as well. No one really knows why Contracts left Cloud9, so I think it's going to be really awesome to see him expand his team, because we've only ever seen him on Cloud9. His early game pressure with Jensen was always great, but with a less mechanical player and less of a carry player with High in the mid lane, more of a shot caller, big game, macro kind of guy, it should be very interesting to see what he can do in the different lanes. And lastly, we have Deftly, who he played for E United this past year in the Challenger Series, and then we have Matt, who used to be the support for Liquid. So I think this team is a really great start. I don't know if they're going to do that great even this whole year, but I think if they can stick together, Lorlo and Contracts have both showed promise, even though they're still pretty young, Contracts especially. Lorlo is still up and coming, so I just think they can only go up from here. But the biggest kind of teeter-totter of if they're going to do well or not is High in the mid lane. It should be extremely interesting to see what he can do with this new team, because if you remember, he played on Cloud9, and then he got moved to the Cloud9 Challenger, and then which Cloud9 Challenger went to FlyQuest. So he's never really dealt with a new team before. So this should be super interesting. And yeah, that's all I really have on Golden Guardians. I think they're the most underrated team. I think a lot is laying on High if he can actually carry with that mid lane pressure that I assume Contracts will bring over from his old Cloud9 strategies. All right, next we have Fnatic. So this team was the biggest surprise of Worlds, in my opinion. They got third place this past year in the European LCS to just make it to Worlds. And then they're in a pretty difficult group, and they somehow slid out with the Immortals throw, and then they actually did semi-well in the quarterfinals. So this team is pretty much bringing back the same team, which actually just got announced today that Reckless was for sure staying. It was their official statement, which, just like Reddit said, is a huge win for European LCS. With so many people leaving, it can be pretty rough to stay a fan as Europeans, but I think it's great that Reckless is staying. I've always loved the guy. I've been watching him for a very long time. He's been one of my favorites, and I'm excited he's staying. So going back up to the top lane, we got Soaz, we got Broxa, we got Caps in the mid lane again. Reckless is AD carry, and then their support is the only thing that they've done new. So their new starting support is Hylissang. He has been on the Unicorns of Love since 2014, and then their backup, which I think they'll just be doing kind of a sorting out, see what happens during the preseason, but their support is Jez's, and he's been on Fnatic since 2016, this past December. So he played 2 splits and then Worlds. So I don't really know. This one's a toss-up. They both have really good track records, especially the last 2 splits, because in League, you can really only judge on the last 2 splits. Veterans, it just seems like you can't really judge too much. So I think it's a pretty big point that they have 2, just to mix things up a little bit, because maybe it can make the world of difference. And then their coach is actually the biggest star, I think, on the team, is Dylan Falco. So he was an analyst on TSM way back in the day, and then he played H2K Immortals, and then he went on NVS for just a little bit in North America, and then he went to Fnatic this past year. So I think it's really interesting to say that he's had a lot of success, but he's also had a few downs, so we'll see what he can do. You can assume they'll be a top 3 team again this year. And lastly, for looking at the off-season changes, we got SK Telecom in LCK. So this team, they are totally done. They got their team, and this is what they're going to go with, at least into the spring split. So in top, we got Untara, and then we got Blank in the jungle, and then Faker in mid, obviously, and then in the bottom lane, we got Bang as AD carry. But then support, we have Wolf and Effort. So I don't know too much about Effort. I don't follow LCK that religiously, that I don't know their academy teams and their kind of in-house subs. So I think a little change is necessary, especially in the top lane coming from Huni. I don't know if he's following the money or if he was unhappy with the team. But Untara always was more consistent this past year. So I really think that they just went with the consistency. They couldn't win with Huni, and SKT doesn't need a carry top laner to win Worlds, so seeing them go for Huni this past year was a weird decision, to say the least, in my brain. So Untara is looking at his track record, is just the best pick in my opinion, and obviously theirs too, because they're a very smart team with a lot of resources, and they could afford a lot more expensive player, but they go with Utara because they think they can build him up to kind of that rock that they need in the top lane. And lastly, we got Koma as their coach, as always. And then since Bangi came out of the jungle, we're assuming he goes to coach because he's talked about how he wanted to coach, but I haven't seen anything released yet. But I mean, you can assume most articles and rumors around Reddit and Facebook and Twitter have been true actually this offseason, so it's pretty crazy. And then, so that's all the teams that I'm looking at today. I'll release a video probably in 2 days looking at 3 more North American LCS teams, and then I'm kind of waiting on Europe. We'll see how many we can do off theirs, and then probably just 1 more LCK team, since I don't know them as well. I can only talk about kind of the big 4. So notable free agents, right now I'm just looking at pretty much Europe and North America. In the top lane, we have Balls. So he has a great track record. He's won multiple LCS championships. He started in 2013 for Quantic Gaming, and then he went to Cloud9. Then he went to Cloud9 Challenger, and then he went to that obvious FlyQuest change from Cloud9 Challenger. So that's pretty weird to see him. He did great in the 2016 Worlds with Cloud9's run. So it's really weird to see him just sitting there as a free agent with most teams already filled up. So I don't know if he'll go be a streamer. He doesn't seem like much of an analyst. I don't think he's ever been that role in the team. So we'll see where he goes. And then the next notable free agent in the top lane is Chris. He worked on the Curse Academy in 2014. And then he just had this slow track record of being high in solo queue, but just kind of jumping around teams. He went from the Curse Academy in 2014 to Coast, to MRG, to Apex, and then to Dignitas, and then he actually went to Brazil for a team named Big Gods Jackals. So usually when they go to these smaller regions, it's kind of their career slowly dying and then just trying to make some money, but sometimes they make a comeback. Very little, but sometimes. So Chris has always been an interesting person to watch. He has always had some weird solo queue champs, so I'm excited to see what he can do. And then lastly, we have Seraph. So Seraph was a mediocre Korean top lane. He was a substitute for Najin Whiteshield way back in the day, and he since came to North America. He started way back on CLG in 2014, and then he went to TDK, Team Dragon Knights, in the Challenger Series, and then they came up and were actually in the LCS, and then he went to Team Impulse, then he went to Renegades, then he finally finished his spot in Envy when they got relegated by the big tournament of franchising. So this one, not so weird to see. He hasn't had a good track record of being on good teams or making teams better, like Balls or Chris has. So I think he's definitely on the bottom tier of the free agents. And then next, we have the jungle. So I'll just talk about top and jungle today. We have Inori. So Inori, not too surprising to see him on the free agents. He's a pretty new player still. He's actually old as me. He's 23. Actually, he's 22 right now. He'll turn 23 very soon. He just started his time on Phoenix 1, and then he went to Team Liquid as like their backup to the backup jungler. So not too much happening there. Just a short career. We'll see if he can find a spot. And just like Inori, we got Moon as a free agent as well. So many people are pulling these veteran junglers because that is such a big position to play. You can't have someone kind of tipsy in the jungle because it can really throw the game. So Moon has been on FlyQuest since January 2017, and before FlyQuest he spilled around Team Liquid and Team Liquid Academy, so he doesn't have the greatest track record either, especially with FlyQuest not doing so hot these past 2 seasons. So yeah, we'll just see where he could end up. And then on the next list we got Santorin, who pretty much everyone knows who Santorin is. He won, I think, 2 championships with TSM, and then he went to Huma, and then he went to Ember, and then he went to Energy, and then he went to Gold Coin United, where he actually did a very great job of control jungling. He didn't have too many carry performances. I don't know if anyone watched the Challenger Series this past year, but it was pretty exciting. And they almost got back in the league, but they just missed out. And yeah, no, he's been streaming a lot. I know he's gotten to the top of solo queue a few times now, so we'll just see where Santorin ends up. I think he's a good player, but he really needs a good team around him, which isn't the best thing to be needed for when you can't carry the team yourself. So then we got Shrimp. Shrimp he's just kind of been a guy that's spilled around just like everyone else. He's been in the league since about 2015, but his biggest performance is on Dignitas this past year. He was actually my favorite jungler of this past season. I think he did a great job in pulling Dig through that kind of messy time that they didn't really know their personality, how they wanted to win games, and he really carried the control of those games. He knew exactly what lane to be in and what to do during the game. It was a very pleasure to see him, and I know casters were giving him a bunch of kudos saying that he was doing a great job as well. And then, oh, I missed one. We got Looper in the top lane. I don't know. He's a shaky one. They brought him over for Echo Fox from Korea or China. I think he was on RNG. Yes, he was on RNG. Before that, he was on the Team WE Academy, and then he dominated on Samsung White before that. So he was a strong player at one point, but just like lots of Koreans that come to North America or Chinese players that come to North America, they just kind of fall by the wayside with either their bad English or the play style or just the lifestyle of North America, just not practicing as much and things like that. So once Echo Fox dropped him, I don't have too much confidence that he'll be picked up, but I think we should, and I don't think he'd take a substitute job either, so I think we might not see him in the league at all this coming season. And then lastly, we have the two European junglers. We got Odoamne and we got Cabachard. So Odoamne has been on H2K since 2014 to current. So we've just been sticking around watching him play a really good team, honestly. They were just always kind of the same situation with Prawley leading them. They were always kind of the same team, and they just did really well, very consistent jungler. If you're looking for like the Karsa or like the Svenskeren, that's your guy. Just very consistent. He's not gonna hard carry any games, but he will have that pop off every now and then. And then lastly, we got Cabachard. So way back in 2014, he was on Ninjas in Pajamas with Bjergsen. If you remember that time, pretty rough team. I think they got relegated and then they got back, and it was pretty interesting, and he's always been just a rock. So I think he did well for Gambit Gaming, and he also did well for Team Vitality, which actually it was a very underrated team, even though the record didn't show it. So yeah, it should be a very interesting year. So just to go over those free agents again, in the top lane, we got Balls, Chris, Seraph, and Looper, who are just kind of sitting around hoping someone maybe calls them for a substitute. And then in the jungle, we got Anori, Moon, Santorin, Shrimp, Odoamne, and Cabachard. So I think the jungle is a lot fuller with just all these random people that don't have jobs right now, which is kind of scary, but that shift is kind of interesting to see as a player, I assume, and as a fan, because it's just fun to see new talent like Contracts or Mike Young. So yeah, I think that's all I got for today. Just as a summary, I went over Cloud9, Echo Fox, Golden Guardians, Fnatic, and SK Telecom. And we will be looking to make a few more videos, so at least 2 more with the rest of the teams and just what we're looking at this coming season. So if you could comment any messages about what you think I'm wrong on, what you think I'm right on, that would be great. And let me know. Yeah, just make sure to like and subscribe so that you can see my videos right when they come up, because this news is so recent and kind of breaking news that you kind of have to keep it up. So if you're watching my videos like 2 or 3 weeks late, it doesn't do too much good, I don't think, unless you want to catch up. Especially on my Counter-Strike Go series, I'll be starting within the next week. So make sure to go hit up my Counter-Strike Global Offensive videos. I will be looking into building kind of a knowledge base with the people that are watching the videos, so we can learn a little bit more about the CSGO esports realm. So again, thank you for watching, and we'll be looking forward to more videos very shortly. Make sure to like and subscribe, and have a good day.
I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul.